No one had ever seen the old photograph in Frank Harrison's locker. The black and white photo from the 1960s showed a young man standing beside an X-15 test aircraft. A plaque reading Edwards Air Force Base Test Pilot Program indicated that the man was Frank. Now, those same hands were carrying luggage and enduring the insults of a young airline pilot. Los Angeles International Airport was one of the world's busiest airports. Every day, hundreds of thousands of passengers, thousands of flights, millions of bags. Among the gears of this giant machine, 72-year-old Frank Buzz Harrison was just another cog. But that cog had a past no one knew about. Frank started work at 5 a.m. at LAX Terminal 4. He performed baggage operations for United Airlines. He had been doing this job for 35 years. Quiet, reliable, never received a single complaint. Deep lines on his face, callous marks on his hands, years of fatigue on his spine. But his eyes his eyes were still sharp and alert, exactly as a pilot should be. This morning was different. There was a major delayed flight at Terminal 4. UA 891 bound for Tokyo would be delayed 3 hours due to technical issues. Passengers were irritated, staff was under stress, and the pilot was completely out of control. Captain Ryan Mitchell, 32 years old, was a young pilot trying to prove himself. UCLA graduate, first in his class from Airline Academy, planning to rise rapidly in his career with his flashy watch, expensive sunglasses, and always trying to look perfect posture, he caught attention. But his most notable feature was considering himself superior to everyone else. What the hell kind of operation is this? Mitchell was shouting as he walked around the gate area. 3-hour delay. Passengers are going crazy. I'm getting beaten up by company management, and you're still moving in slow motion. Frank was quietly organizing the baggage carts. Due to the delay, he needed to reorganize the removed baggage. He was carefully checking each bag, doing damage control, reviewing their tags. With 35 years of experience, he could tell at a glance which bag belonged where. Mitchell came over to Frank. "You, old man. How long will these bags be ready?" Frank looked up. "Sir, we'll be ready in about an hour. We need to check each bag individually. An hour." Mitchell's voice went high. "You're telling me an hour? I've been waiting here for 3 hours. Passengers are going crazy. The company is calling me, and you're telling me to give you another hour." Frank tried to remain calm. "Sir, security procedures require that each bag ... security procedures." Mitchell laughed. "Look, old-timer, I've been a pilot for 10 years. Do you know security procedures better than me? You just carry bags." These words hurt Frank, but there was no change in his face. He just bowed his head and continued his work. Mitchell continued, "Let me tell you how inefficient you elderly people are. You move slowly, can't adapt to technology, constantly take breaks. You're not suitable for modern aviation. Maybe it's time for your retirement." Someone was watching this situation from the other side of Terminal 4. Rebecca Chen, 45 years old, LAX operations manager. She had known Frank for years and had great respect for him. This young pilot's behavior had disturbed her. "Captain Mitchell," Rebecca approached. "Is there a problem here?" Mitchell turned to her. "Yes, there's a problem. This old baggage handler is working too slowly. The flight is delayed and he's wasting even more time for us." Rebecca was surprised. "Which old handler?" "Frank. He's the most experienced baggage operator at this airport. He's worked here for 35 years. Experienced." Mitchell mocked. "Lady, experience doesn't equal speed. This man is slow due to his age. He's not suitable for modern aviation." Captain Mitchell, Rebecca patiently explained. "Frank Harrison is the most reliable employee at this terminal. Baggage losses under his responsibility are near zero. Damage rates are below industry average." "I don't care about statistics," Mitchell snapped. I want results. This old man is delaying me. Frank continued his work during this time. While examining a tag on a bag, something caught his attention. The tag was half torn and another tag was visible underneath. With his old experience, he understood this was a misdirection. The bag would go to New York instead of Tokyo. Excuse me. Frank approached Rebecca. There's a tag problem on this bag. It shows wrong destination. Rebecca looked at the tag. You're right, Frank. Good catch. This could have been a big problem, Mitchell grumbled. Great, now he's playing baggage detective too. These jobs are complicated enough already. Frank quietly fixed the bag and continued his work. But Mitchell's attacks weren't stopping, they were getting harsher. Look here, old-timer, Mitchell stood in front of Frank. Let me tell you the facts. You're here because you don't have the ability to work anywhere else. You're inadequate in the modern world. You can't understand real skill requiring jobs like piloting. These words were the last straw for Frank. For 35 years, he had worked quietly, never telling anyone about his past. But this young man's arrogance had now reached an unbearable level. Frank took out his wallet from his pocket. He pulled out an old black and white photograph from inside. In the photo, a young man was standing next to an X-15 test aircraft. A plaque reading Edwards Air Force Base Test Pilot Program was visible. This is me, Frank handed the photo to Mitchell. In 1967, Mitchell looked at the photo and frowned. Is this Photoshop? Very amateur fake. Rebecca looked closely at the photo. That plaque, that aircraft ... they looked real. Frank, is this ... is this real? Frank quietly nodded. I served in the X-15 test program. Between 1965 to 1969, Mitchell laughed. Impossible. You're just a baggage handler. Being an X-15 pilot requires years of training. My training took 12 years, Frank calmly explained. I graduated from MIT with aeronautical engineering. I joined the Air Force in 1963, completed the test pilot program in 1965. Rebecca was shocked. Frank, why didn't you ever tell us? Because the past should stay in the past, Frank shrugged. I'm just a baggage handler now. Mitchell still didn't believe it. Prove it. Anyone can claim to be a test pilot. Frank called a number on his phone from his pocket. When the phone was answered, Chuck, it's Buzz ... Yes, I'm at LAX. I need an identity verification. He handed the phone to Mitchell. Talk. Mitchell took the phone. The voice on the other end introduced himself as curator from Chuck Yeager Museum, confirming that Frank Buzz Harrison had served in the X-15 test pilot program, completed a total of 47 test flights, and was one of the most successful pilots in the program's history. Mitchell hung up the phone. His face had turned pale. Buzz Harrison ... double quotes. The curator's last words on the phone were ringing in his ears. The Buzz Harrison legend of the X-15 program, Frank had laughed. Not a legend, Chuck, just an old baggage handler now. Mitchell now didn't know what to do. He had just been disrespectful to one of aviation history's legends. At this point, other employees at the terminal were starting to become aware of the situation. Frank's true identity was slowly spreading. Ground Operations Supervisor Mike Torres approached. Frank, this is ... This is incredible. X-15 program, Frank nodded. Long time ago, Mike. Different life. What was your fastest flight? Torres asked excitedly. Frank thought. Mach 6.72, October 3, 1967, altitude 354,200 feet. Edge of space. Mitchell's mouth was hanging open. He knew those numbers. They were X-15's record flights. Rebecca asked curiously, Frank, why did you leave your test pilot career? Frank's eyes misted up. The program ended in 1969. NASA focused on Apollo. One chose a different path. I moved to commercial aviation, then to ground operations. I wanted a quieter life, but you were a legend. Torres insisted. Legends are for museums. Frank smiled. I prefer real work. Mitchell came forward in shame. Mr. Harrison, sir, I had no idea. Frank approached and put his hand on Mitchell's shoulder. Ryan, when I was your age, I was very arrogant too. I thought I knew everything, but aviation's most important lesson is this: humility, because the sky never forgives. Mitchell bowed his head. How can I apologize? Don't apologize, learn. Frank laughed. Every person has a story, and experience isn't just gained in the cockpit. It's also gained on the ground. At this point, terminal manager Jennifer Walsh approached. She had learned about Frank's situation and was shocked. Mr. Harrison, she said respectfully, this is ... extraordinary. Would you consider giving a talk to our pilot training program? Frank thought. Maybe, but first, let me finish today's work. These bags still need to be loaded. I'll help. Mitchell stepped forward. If you'll let me. Frank was surprised. You want to help with baggage? Yes, sir. I think I need to learn some ground operations. Frank smiled. Okay, Ryan, but first rule, every bag matters. Each one contains someone's life. Mitchell nodded and took off his captain cap. Yes, sir, Mr. Harrison. Hours later, Mitchell had learned not just baggage loading from Frank, but life lessons too. He saw how Frank carefully handled each bag, how he checked every detail, how he showed respect to each passenger's belongings. Frank, Mitchell asked curiously, do you ever miss it? Test piloting. Frank looked up at the sky. Ryan, test piloting was about pushing limits, exploring the unknown. This job is the same thing. Every day new challenges, new problems to solve. The scale is different, but the spirit is the same. That's a beautiful way to look at it. It comes with age. Frank laughed. You'll learn too. That evening, Mitchell returned home as a completely different person. What he learned from Frank wasn't just baggage operations. What he really learned was humility, respect, and that behind every person there could be a great story. That night, Frank took out the old photo from his locker and looked at it again. The young man standing next to the X-15 seemed very far away, but that young man's spirit was still here, at this airport, continuing to live while carrying these bags. The next morning, Mitchell came to Lax early. He was waiting for Frank as they worked together on baggage loading operations. Mitchell asked, Frank, what was your most memorable flight? Frank thought, 1967, October. The flight where we reached Mach 6.72 with the X-15A2. That day I was at the edge of space. I saw Earth's curvature, I saw the stars. It was a life-changing experience. What did it feel like? Pure freedom, but at the same time, huge responsibility. Because that aircraft was millions of dollars of research. One mistake could ruin everything. Mitchell was impressed. And now you handle bags with the same precision? Exactly, Frank smiled. Because every job deserves your best effort. Whether you're flying Mach 6 or loading a suitcase, this conversation became a turning point in Mitchell's pilot career. From that day on, he started treating ground crew differently. He learned to respect every employee, to understand the value of every job. At Lax, Frank's story became a legend. An inspirational story told two young pilots: never judge someone by their current job. You never know what heights they've reached. Frank Harrison continued working like this. A former test pilot, now a baggage handler. But both worked according to the same principles: precision, dedication, excellence. And Ryan Mitchell, that young pilot, thanks to the humility he learned from Frank, became one of United Airlines' most respected captains years later. On every flight, he would remember Frank's words: every job deserves your best effort. Sometimes true heroes appear in the most unexpected places, in the most unexpected forms. Frank Buzz Harrison was the perfect example of this. A man who had reached the edge of the sky, now quietly serving on the ground, but his legend never ended.